Hey everybody, this is Stuart with Wine on the Dime. I'm doing the fourth quiz in my WSET Level 2 series. This is on the second half of factors affecting wine quality and price. Let's get started. So this quiz is going to be 20 questions. The format's going to be question slide, then answer slide. I do recommend that you write down your answer as if you were taking the test. Try to take about 1 minute or less per question to answer it and do it closed book. All the questions were created by me. There are no questions from the WSET 2 textbook or workbook, but feel free to use those as additional sources. However, all of the content was derived by the WSET textbook. Also, this quiz has been made to assume you've actually been studying this stuff already. So you've read the textbook, you've done some work in terms of studying the chapter. I don't go through and represent the chapters and do a whole bunch of content for that. I'm just here to quiz you and to either make you feel good about your learning or make you feel like crap. Let's get started. Question number 1. Which of the following factors for successful vine growth are not found in the environment? Water, heat, carbon dioxide, sunlight. The answer is C. Carbon dioxide is found in the air, but the other factors are determined by the environment. For example, think of a river valley versus a desert. The desert would have many factors that could hinder quality growth, such as excessive heat, sunlight, and so on. But both factors contain the same levels of CO2. Now, I know someone who's probably a climate scientist or something is going to say something where like this valley has more CO2 than this other one, and even though they're at the same, I'm talking generalities here, people. Question 2. Latitude has a definitive impact on the climate of a region. True or false? The answer is A, true. The closer you get to the equator, the warmer the region tends to be. And as we saw in the previous quiz, warmer regions affect grapes differently than cooler regions. I sort of gave away the answer for this. Question 3. The climate of a region can influence the characteristics of a grape grown in that area. True or false? Answer is A. This is very much true. Climate affects the ripeness of the grape, which impacts the alcohol, acidity, body, tannins, and many other things. Question 4. If the climate of a wine growing region is warm, then the alcohol in the wine will be A, unchanged, B, lighter than a cool region, C, higher than a cool region. The answer is C. The grapes develop more sugar, which is converted into alcohol by the yeast during fermentation. More sugar equals more alcohol. Question number 5. If the climate of a wine growing region is warm, then the acidity in the wine will be A, unchanged, B, lighter than a cool region, C, higher than a cool region. The answer here is B. The acid in the grapes will be lower because it is utilized as part of the production of sugar in the grape. A quick tip to remember is that heat gives more of everything but acidity. Question number 6. If the climate of a wine-growing region is cool, then the body of the wine will be A, unchanged, B, lighter than a warm region, C, more full-bodied than a warm region. The answer here is B. Cooler wine regions result in less overall development of the wine, or the grape, which results in lighter-bodied wine. Question number 7. Why are there not many wineries greater than 50 degrees latitude, north or south? A, it's too expensive to plant grapes. B, wine laws prohibit wine production. C, climate tends to be too cold for quality grape growing. D, the soil does not have enough nutrients to support growth. The answer here is C. In general, latitudes greater than 50 degrees have a climate too cold to support quality grape growth or put vines at risk with frost damage. I know there are exceptions. I know someone's going to say in the comments here, there's an exception, there's an area that grows really good wine, and it's past generality. Generality is what they're focusing on here. Question 8. Which of the following statements is not true regarding heat and grape growing? A. Heat is a required item for grape production. B. Grapes grown in warmer climates tend to produce wines higher in alcohol. C. Wines in warmer regions tend to be higher in alcohol than those from colder regions. And D. Too much heat has no effect on the quality of the grapes produced. The answer here is D, and I say that this is a gimme question because D is a absolutist statement, In general, on exams, unless there's very specific proof that nothing can ever be outside of a possibility, absolutist questions always tend to be wrong, just so you know. But, however, too much heat can impact grape growth by causing too much water stress on the vine. This can result in the vine shutting down and not producing enough sugars in the grape, or cause it not to produce grapes at all. Essentially, what the vines do is they go into a fight for life mode, and they just kind of stop producing a lot of stuff. And they just kind of try to retain as much water as they can until it's not too hot to actually live. So too much heat really can affect wine growth. Question number 9. The grapes grown in blank regions tend to produce more sugar and be higher in alcohol than grapes grown in blank regions. A. North regions versus southern regions. B. High altitude regions versus low altitude regions. C. Warmer regions versus cooler regions. D. Sloped regions versus valley regions. The answer here is C. Grapes grown in warmer areas tend to have more time to ripen and develop sugars, which gets converted into alcohol by yeast during the fermentation process. Question 10. Most grape growing regions are between blank and blank degrees in latitude. 10 and 30 degrees, 20 and 40 degrees, 30 and 50 degrees, 40 and 60 degrees. The answer is C. This has to do with the ideal distance from the equator to the poles. Question 11. Which of the following are not ways that you can influence the style or quality of a wine through vineyard management? A. Pest control. B. Pigment extraction. C. Canopy management. D. Date of harvest. The answer here is B. Pigment extraction is a consideration of the winemaking process, not vineyard management. Question 12. Why are wines typically destemmed before they are fermented? A. The stems contain high levels of sugar that need to be removed to prevent the wine from being too sweet. B. The stems contain high level of bitter oils that need to be removed to prevent the wine from being too unctuous. C. The stems contain high levels of tannins that need to be removed to prevent the wine from being too astringent. D. The stem contains high levels of water that need to be removed to prevent the wine from being too thin. The answer here is C. The goal of destemming is to remove the potential excess for tannins in wine. There are producers that will ferment whole clusters of grapes, but they are also careful during pressing to keep the pressure light enough not to extract the tannins from the stems. So if you ever want to know how tannic a grape stem is, all you really need to do is you just need to go to your local store, buy a cluster of grapes, and peel the skin off of a grape, eat the pulp, chew on the peel of the actual the skin of the grape, and then actually bite into the green stem and just chew on that for a bit. You'll be surprised how many tannins are in there. What is the usual order for the red winemaking process? Option A, press, crush, fermentation, maturation, bottling. B, press, crush, fermentation, bottling, maturation. C, crush, press, fermentation, maturation, bottling. D, crush, press, fermentation, bottling, maturation. The answer here is C. The process for winemaking, for red winemaking, is the same as white, but the biggest difference is that there's more winemaking options that can be included as part of manipulating the characteristics of the final wine. So you can look into things like MLF, you can look into how long the actual wine sits on the skins, so on. There's lots of winemaking choices, and the textbooks cover many of them. Question 14. The type of oak barrel used affects the price of the wine. True or false? So the answer here is A, it's true. The barrel can have a large impact on the price of the wine, so it's not uncommon for French oak to cost about 900 plus bottles a barrel. If you're using something that's seasoned oak and it's seasoned for a long time, you might be getting closer to like $1.5 grand or more per barrel, so it can be pretty expensive. Whereas American oak barrels tend to be about $300 plus. All right, so question 15. Oak flavors can be imparted into the wine via 1. Oak chips, 2. Oak staves, 3. Barrel maturation, 4. Micro-oxidation. Your answer choices are 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. Alright, so the answer here is C. Microoxidation is used to soften tannins via contact with oxygen and make it easier to drink without the cost of maturing it in oak. However, oak flavor is not imparted into the wine unless paired with another source of oak, like oak chips, oak staves, or barrel maturation. Question 16. Which of the following soils result in the warmest growing conditions? A. Stony, B. Sand, C. Clay, D. Muddy. The answer here is A. Stony soils absorb and reflect more heat during the day. At night, they radiate warmth, keeping everything toasty. Question 17. Consistent saturation of the soil is a requirement for growing quality grapes. True or false? The answer is B. You want to water the vine just enough to result in quality grape growth, but prevent dilution of the concentration of the flavors in the grape. Remember, stress. The whole winemaking process is about stress. Stress in planting, stress in management, stress in harvest, stress in winemaking, stress in marketing and sales. Everything is about stress when it comes to wine. Question 18. Which of the following statements is true? Sunlight is required for photosynthesis. Inadequate sunlight can result in underripe grapes. Sunlight warms the soil. Vines can be planted on slopes to maximize the amount of sunlight they receive during the growing season. Your answer choices are A. 1 and 2, B. 3 and 4, C. 2, 3, 4, D. 1, 2, 3, 4. The answer here is D. Access to the right amount of sunlight is very important to vines for many of the metabolic processes in grape development. Question 19. Frost can change the nature of grapes by A. Concentrating sugars in the grape, B. Lowering the acid in the grape, C. Reducing the amount of time that grapes need to ripen, D. Thickening the skin of the grapes. So the answer here is A. Concentrating the sugars in the grape. Colder climates actually allow for longer growing seasons, increased acid, and have no effect on the thickness of a grape's skin. They do concentrate the sugars, which is actually a way that they make a dessert wine, such as ice wine. Question 20. If the climate of a wine growing region is cool, then the tannins in the red wine will be A. Unchanged, B. Lighter than a warm region, C. Higher than a warm region. The answer here is B. Grapes in cool climates tend to have thinner skins, which result in less tannins. Alright, so how did you do? If you got at least 17 correct, you passed with distinction. Good job. If you got 14 correct, you passed with merit. Good job. If you got 11 correct, you just passed. But still you passed. Good job. If you got 10 or less, you failed. You probably need to go back and study the section of the textbook, maybe read it again, and come up with some new ways to just kind of figure out what's going on. So my advice on this quiz is the same as the advice on the previous quiz. Generate rules for the impacts of geography and climate. Law is one of my acronyms that I gave in the last quiz. Maybe you've come up with some more on your own since then. If so, good job. If not, maybe you need to think of some if you're having a hard time with these. 2, learn the anatomy of the grape and how the plant metabolism works. Knowing how vines produce quality grapes is very important, and knowing what goes into quality grapes is very important. All of this will come back as you're learning about wines and wine regions and why they're popular there. 3, diagram the winemaking process and choices. Like I mentioned last time, I'm a big fan of flashcards and just kind of making it a puzzle and making it all work together. But if you have other ways of learning, then that's good for you. Anyway, this has been Stuart with Wine on the Dime. If you like today's WSET 2 quiz, please like, subscribe, and comment. I'm going to continue to work through the rest of WSET 2 this year. I'm also going to be continuing to do my wine reviews, wine live streams, and winery visits. So please feel free to stick around, click that notifications bell, and I'll see you all again soon with another episode or another wine WSET quiz from Wine on the Dime.